I got to meet Mitch last night. We've been having some great conversation now.
If you're going to, we're going to talk mostly about music today. Yeah. Hopefully we'll have time and get to do that.
Yeah, on the subject of disruption, I guess.
We'll talk about disruption a little bit, exactly. Music has been disrupted. As I just mentioned in the opening remarks, there's really nothing that's driven change in people's personal lives and their business lives in the past 30 or 40 years, more so than technology. When you sat back in what we now know was not the garage in the mid-70s, working on what you were working on, did you envision that it was going to spark the change that ensued in the world?
No, I thought it was going to be a big deal. Computers for people. The change, we grow up and every generation says, oh my gosh, we've changed so much since our great-grandparents. Now we have washing machines and we don't have to do it by hand. And you know, when I was young, it seemed like there was almost no change at all. It was very slow and life was nice and it was settled. And in the last few decades, with the start of the computers and then the internet and the mobile and the apps and the social, it's like you can't keep up with it. I think we're changing much faster than ever before. And who could ever predict it way back in time? Maybe today's young generation is walking around saying, hey, all these devices, it's sort of a static world. This is just the world we're born into. And it really doesn't change much. Maybe that's the way it looks to them. I don't know. But it's like every time I'm using different apps, I'm thinking, how did I used to do this in the old days, you know, to get a taxi or Uber or to look up a movie or any of these things. It was very slow. You know, and that applies also to materials handling. Everything had to kind of be done in person with reps and distributors and very slow compared to what the internet brought us.
Just because you mentioned very slow, and it's not in the script here, I was struck by something you mentioned last night over dinner, and I think people here would be interested into the reasons for it. Steve Wozniak does not have broadband internet access in his home.
Yeah, I think broadband should be an essential part of life. I think it is. When I order an iTunes movie, it takes me 7 hours to download. I live in the one part of Silicon Valley that doesn't have broadband. My entire life growing up, and I was a phone freak. Back when I met Steve Jobs, I was a phone freak. And the Los Gatos phone company had a reputation for being one of the most antiquated phone companies in the whole country. And now I live in Los Gatos on the side that has that antiquated phone company, not the Netflix side of Los Gatos. And sure, I live a kilometer up the hill and they don't run any broadband, and that's sort of disappointing. I remember back when I was young, we had a regulated phone company and they had to run a phone line to every house at a certain price, and I wish I had broadband. I don't even have the old 4 megabit broadband or 4 gigabit broadband. I don't have 25 megabits, forget it.
I was struck by that, folks.
You know, you learn to live with it. I travel a lot, so I get better speed in most hotels. Although that wasn't true. 2 years ago, most hotels were worse than my house. And the worst of all, you still get less than dial-up speed if you're on a cruise ship. Beware. Buy some local SIM cards when you're near enough to land to receive the signal.
When's the last time anyone here heard, bing, you've got mail? We don't get it anymore. I was struck. I'm sorry. We'll get back to the business here.
Hey, I tell you, AOL was a big thing, you know, just at the start of the internet, just before the internet. And it was Macintosh only, and I taught classes of 5th to 9th graders. Taught classes to young kids, man. Every kid had to have AOL. Being on networks, getting in touch with people far away was an important part of the computer life to me. It made us like Superman. If you could talk to somebody who's in another state, another country maybe, yeah.
On a par, has the technology that has advanced, which you played a big part in sparking, looking back, has it been positive for the human race?
I think most people judge that our technology advance has been positive, especially today where we're just walking around with our remote controls to every bit of data in the world, and people come up to me all the time, oh, thank you, I'm so glad for what we have today. And that's true. I think most people are happy because we're building all this technology to make it easy so we don't have to do the thinking and the work, and it's kind of pre-done. All we have to do is learn how to access it on these little machines we have and computers, and there's some fears of negatives that go along with that. You know, not as many people know the structure of what's being done. It's sort of already done for them. We're building the machines to take care of us, and that makes me think we want to be the family pet, the well taken care of dog. So I started taking care of my dog really well, feeding him filet steaks. If I'm going to be a pet to the machines, well, I want to be taken care of well. Golden rule.
In regards to being a pet, being taken care of the machines, do you have any thoughts on artificial intelligence?
Yeah, that's what it all boils down to. You know, artificial intelligence, when first program I ever wrote, we did not have a computer in our high school. But my electronics teacher got me to go down to Sylvania and be able to learn how to write programs on a thing called a computer. And this was great. The first program I wrote that was significant was the Knight's Tour of Chess, where a knight piece hits every square once. And the lights flashed, flickered. I wrote a program that just tried every possibility over and over. The computer could do 1,000,000 things a second. A human being can't even do one thing a second. And nothing came out. And nothing came out. I studied my program, and it was good, and it was intact, and it was going to get the answer, but it was going to take 10 to the 25th years. So that told me the brain figures out how to solve problems. A computer can only do what it's told. That is not intelligence. I watched artificial intelligence developing. I was close to the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Lab in those days, and a robot would pick up a blue ball and put it in a blue box, you know, or a round ball and put it in a round hole. And I thought, this is not intelligence. This is not what a brain does. Computers will never, ever be able to do what the brain does. To this day, we don't know how the brain is wired. We don't have a clue. But we've taken steps to getting there. Because you used to ask a person with a brain a big question, and now the person you ask it starts with G-O, and it's not God. And you Google and you get tons more answers than you can get from a person with a brain. So even if the person's standing in the room with you, a professor, you'll just Google it and get more information than you would have gotten from the professor anyway. So somehow, did we set out to build a brain? No. We just tried to extend network connections and do the electronics tricks and make machines talk to one another and have enable communications. And eventually everyone could publish. When the internet was in the dial-up days, everyone could be a publisher. And there was so much information we needed search engines, and that sort of replaced a part of what our brain does. Came out by accident. So they asked, well, are machines ever going to get really intelligent, like conscious, like have feelings and care and be that smart? And it'll probably start with the internet, because the internet has as many nodes or computers as we have neurons in a brain, and as many network connections as we have synapses. And that's probably where it's going to appear first. It's going to appear subtly, and we're just out there building these machines to get smarter and smarter. Now, when Apple introduced a thing called the Newton Message Pad once, an early tablet. You could handwrite with a stylus. You could even write in cursive, and it would figure out your words. And this thing was amazing to me, but the first day I had my Newton, I handwrote a message in the San Francisco airport with my kids flying to Disney World. Handwrote a little message. Sarah is a reminder to myself. Sarah, dentist, Tuesday, 2 p.m. I wrote it on a notepad. Then I saw a button called Assist. I didn't know what it did. It was a brand new product. I like to try everything. I clicked Assist. It opened up the calendar. Tuesday at 2 p.m. It put the word dentist, and it grabbed Sarah from my contact list. And it blew me away. I said, for the rest of my life, I want to live in the human world and have the machines understand me. And now we've got Siri, and we've got Google Now, and we've got Cortana, and each have different advantages for different things. But I just ask questions about the world like I used to ask it. My dad would pull it out an encyclopedia to find out what is, the tallest mountain in Texas or something. And now you can just ask Siri and you get the answers. No, this is like I'm talking to a friend, and it's talking back. It already has the senses of a human being. It has the sense of touch, the sense of motion, hearing, and sight. And with GPS, it knows where it is in the world. When I wake up, I don't even know what city I'm in. So it's ahead of me. Oh yeah, it's Chicago. Remind me. So these machines are just like little fellow humans. Will they ever become best friends? They don't yet think out solutions for themselves. They haven't passed that stage. It's predicted that probably they'll sort of have information processing capability in 20 years by some realistic predictions based on exponential curves that are like Moore's Law. I doubted that at first, that we'd ever figure out the formula to intelligence, because I studied the brain quite a bit. We don't even know where memories are really stored or how. But you know what? The methodology was right, and I finally came around and said the singularity idea has merit. In 20 years, these machines will be thinking faster than us. and better than us. They'll be running companies better than us. And it's such a negative thought. You come to all the negative outcomes like the movie Her, that I wanted to think of, I don't want to say these negative things. It's just too sick to talk about. You know, all the computers will run everything. They won't need us humans. We'll just be sort of the family pets at first, maybe the gods if we created the new species. And I started thinking about it and I said, there's got to be a way it won't happen. And if Moore's law is at its end, Moore's law is a law of physics of how many more electronic neurons you can put in your little devices every year than the year before. How much smarter can they get? If they keep getting smarter and smarter and smarter, then they'll get as smart as a human. And I'm thinking we might be near the end of it because we're storing zeros and ones in 8 electrons, and that's too small to deal with. So I'm hoping that we don't get a fully conscious machine. On the other hand, a fully conscious machine would really solve a lot of education problems. You want to talk about education? I had 2 goals in my life. I told my dad in 6th grade, I want to be an engineer. And second, I want to be a 5th grade teacher. So important a person in a young kid's life, you know. And eventually I did wind up going into teaching. I taught for quite a while, and I found out the biggest detriment to teaching well, the biggest problem with our school system is class size. You can't deal with individual problems. You can't have some kids going slower than others and faster than others, and the test is on Friday, and a lot of dropouts by 3rd grade. A lot of kids have decided school's not for me forever. The teachers will tell you which one. How do we fix these problems in education? Well, you don't fix them by talking about the same things that have been around for 200 years. We've got to have engaging teachers. We've got to have goal-oriented classes. We've got to have problem solving. You can't say the same things that people could say 200 years ago because they're as smart as us. I thought, what could do it? Computers were supposed to improve how smart kids came out. We put all these computers into the school. We put the internet in the school. We put all those tools in. You have to live with it now. And you're smarter than a person was maybe by appearance that was 20 years ago. But the kids aren't coming out really thinking more out of school. How do we change that? I've got to think of something new that doesn't exist. So if computers ever got conscious, you could have 1 teacher per student. And I found in my own examples, 1 teacher per student can never fail. And every single student would be engaged, going in the directions they want to go in life, you know, picking directions that they like in subjects real early in life instead of later on. And if they're slow at something, no problem. Don't have to keep up with everyone else. Don't have to learn the things you don't like to learn. But it's impossible in a class with 30 students. And it is with computers, so I hope computers do that someday. Conscious computer could be your best friend and guide because a young student wants some kind of human guidance. And today's computers have the curriculum, but they aren't like a human friend. So I hope we pass that order someday. Anyway.
Steve is long. Just answer my next 4 questions.
I could talk longer about that than just not.
Well, but as you said, that it occurred to me, I know in my